Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video we're going to be breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Monday, November the 29th. We got a 9-game Monday slate, so as always guys, we're going to go game by game. We're going to talk through each game on the slate, break down each team, kind of give my quick thoughts, what does stand out to me looking at the slate, the night before, looking Sunday night. And then as we do go through each game, we'll kind of build out an early core. 5 guys I do like on each site. 5 guys specifically for DraftKings and then for Yahoo as well. Before we do get started with the breakdown, as always, please do hit the like button down below. I always appreciate all the likes, guys. And if you're new to the channel and you have not yet, click that subscribe button as well. Also, check out the sponsor of the video, PrizePicks. PrizePicks is a player prop based DFS site where you're picking the over or the under on players' projections. You can take a look at their board for Monday night's games. You can see everything they have to offer. They have single stat projections, so these are player props, points, rebounds, assists, three-pointers made. They also do fantasy point projections on PrizePicks as well. They don't have those posted yet, but they usually will post those early Monday morning. You can take a look at their projections, make some picks for tonight's games. They have a ton of sports. They have NBA, they have NFL. So if you wanted to get some picks in for Monday Night Football, you could do that. You can mix and match sports. So if you want to play, a couple picks in NFL, a couple picks in NBA, group them together, make an entry that way. You can do that as well. So if you want to sign up for PrizePicks, you have not yet, use code Noah. They'll match your first deposit. They will give you a free bet up to $100 when you do sign up with my code, and you can potentially win up to 10 extra money over on PrizePicks. So give them a look if you have not yet, guys. Sign up, use code Noah, and they will match your first deposit up to $100. I do want to mention that I also give out some of my favorite picks over on PrizePicks each day for Patreon members. If you guys want to check out the Patreon, I do provide a lot more updated content over there. Not only do you get access to my favorite plays on PrizePicks each day, you also get my full updated core plays. You get access to my rankings, which are my top 20 plays of the day, ranked in order. My favorite values, my favorite studs, those will all be in the rankings. I do my positional plays as well, list off my favorite plays at each position. I color code them based on how they rank. So all that's available on Patreon. If that's something that interests you and you want to check out Patreon, it's linked down below in the description along with the PrizePicks, PrizePicks partnership. But yeah, guys, let's take a look at Monday's 9-game slate. We're going to start off with the Magic and Sixers game. So looking at the Magic here, this is the team that, I normally am not that excited to roster. Rarely am I playing a ton of Magic guys, but they're going to continue to be pretty short-handed. There's going to be no Cole Anthony for today's game, and Mo Bamba was out last game. He's questionable once again. I think without Cole Anthony, that really benefits Jalen Suggs. It benefits RJ Hampton, but I think Suggs is the guy that we probably want to consider the most. He hasn't been great lately. We haven't seen a ton of upside from Jalen Suggs, but there's going to be opportunity for him without Cole Anthony. He's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. The only concern is that this Orlando team is really bad. The Sixers are starting to get healthy now, so they have Tobias Harris healthy. They have Joel Embiid back and healthy. This is definitely a spot where the Sixers could just blow them out, and I do worry about that for a lot of these Magic guys. But I think Jalen Suggs at 5,300 without Cole Anthony is playable. I think if Mo Bamba is out, Wendell Carter Jr. would look like a really good play. He's been playing really, really well lately. Last game, played 32 minutes, got ejected late in that game. Still put up 40 DK points, though. His fantasy upside, his just upside in general, would definitely increase without Mo Bamba on the floor. So would definitely like Wendell Carter quite a bit if Mo Bamba's out. And then I think Franz Wagner's okay for value for 4,900. Going to play probably 32 to 34 minutes. The price tag's starting to creep up a little bit, so he's not, as good of a value as he kind of has been these last few slates. He was 3,900 not too long ago. Now he's 4,900. Don't like him as much, but still playable just because he's going to get a lot of minutes as long as the game does stay close. That's probably it though from the Magic. I will say that Robin Lopez did start last game in place of Mo Bamba. He played 31 minutes. This is a really tough spot going up against Joel Embiid. This is definitely one where you do worry about foul trouble. I don't think Robin Lopez is a guy that I would be running to roster on this slate if Mo Bamba's out, but he would at least be playable because it's likely that he would start again and probably play around 30 minutes if the game stays close. You just do worry, with foul trouble going up against Embiid, plus there's some blowout risk. But there's definitely some guys you could go to on this Magic team. I will say that if Mo Bamba's out, Wendell Carter will be my favorite play from Orlando. Now on the Philly side, looking at the Sixers, with Joel Embiid now back and fully healthy, he played his full minutes last game. That's really going to make me really not interested in any of these Sixers guys because they all were priced up for when Embiid was out. I think the only Sixer I would be rostering today would probably be Embiid himself. And I do really like the spot for Joel Embiid going up against this Magic team that is going to have no answer for him. It's going to be either Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter, or Robin Lopez guarding Joel Embiid, and none of those guys are going to stop him. So love Embiid here. Great matchup. You worry about the blowout, but if the game stays close, it wouldn't be surprising to see him put up another 55, 60-point game. His first game back from COVID, He played like 40, yeah, he played 45 minutes. It was a double overtime game, but he still played 35 minutes in regulation. So he played 35 minutes last game, and then obviously he played more because of overtime. I think we get like 35 minutes from Embiid here as long as the game stays close, which is obviously the worry. But if it does stay close, Embiid has massive upside. He's for sure the guy I like most from Philly. Moving on to the next game, Denver and Miami. So Denver, kind of a tough team to break down right now because we're going to need an update on Jokic. Jokic has been questionable for like the past week now. He has yet to play. He hasn't played since the 18th of November. I feel like Jokic is going to play soon. Like, I've honestly been surprised he hasn't come back yet. We saw he was like out on the court warming up. It looked like he was going to play. There was reports that he said he wanted to play, but I guess the coaching staff just chose to, leave him or just like not push it, any farther than it had to go, I guess. So Jokic, at 11-4, if he winds up playing here, probably going to be more of a contrarian option just because the matchup against Miami is pretty tough. Miami, one of the better defensive teams in the league. They play really slow. Jokic, we know, has massive upside. Jokic can crush in any matchup, but it would be his first game back from injury, plus the matchup's really tough. So even if Jokic plays, I don't love him on this slate. The rest of these Denver guys, none of these guys are in play for me unless Jokic is out again. If Jokic remains out, then Will Barton, Aaron Gordon, Monte Morris would become viable. I don't think any of them would be standout plays given where they're all priced at. Also, given it's a really tough matchup. So, don't love much from Denver today. The only guy I'd be considering, I think, is Jokic if he winds up playing. The other guys, if Jokic gets ruled out, would be viable, but I really wouldn't love them in a tough matchup like this. But on the Miami side, another team we're going to have to watch when it comes to injury. Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, both questionable. These are definitely two of the biggest injuries on the slate to monitor right now. Because if Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero are both out, that will definitely change the entire landscape of this slate. You're going to want to be rostering some of these Miami guys. Bam Adebayo at 8,200 would be a great play. Kyle Lowry, even at 7K, would be a great play if Jimmy and Hero are both out. And then we could probably get some value from Miami depending on who would start. I'd assume you'd see more minutes for a guy like Max Strus. Max Strus did play 31 minutes last game. That was with Tyler Hero out. He would probably play a lot of minutes again if Hero sits. And obviously if Jimmy sits as well, that would just be even more usage and opportunity available for some of these guys. Maybe PJ Tucker could be viable. I wouldn't love that, but he'd be playable. But we'd have to wait and see what they do with the starting lineup. There will definitely be a lot of viable plays from Miami if Jimmy and Hero are out. Now, if Jimmy and Hero play, then I really don't like much from this Miami team. Given where everyone's priced at, like nobody stands out. That's kind of how it's been for me when it comes to the Heat for like these last few slates. And I think today, nobody from Miami would stand out if they're all healthy. But we're going to have to pay attention to the injury report. We can talk more about this in the live stream, in the live stream Monday. I almost said Saturday. And Monday, about an hour before lock, I'll be live breaking down the slate once again. Hopefully we'll have some news on these Miami guys by then, and we can obviously touch on this situation again. But for now, we'll just got to wait and see what happens with Jimmy and Hero. Next game, though, Charlotte and Chicago. So on Charlotte, LaMelo Ball, 10,400. I think LaMelo's definitely a tournament play here. I don't know if he's going to be a guy that I prioritize on the slate. The matchup against Chicago is not great. The Bulls have had a really good defense. They've been a really good defensive team this season. They've got the 5th best defensive rating in the league. In terms of pace, the Bulls I don't think have been playing that fast either. They've been about middle of the pack in pace. Charlotte, we know, does play really fast. Charlotte's a really fast-paced team in general. I think, with the narrative going up against Lonzo, maybe LaMelo comes out here and tries to play well. I don't think the spot's great for him. The matchup's not great. Lonzo might be guarding him, and Lonzo is a really good defender. But we've seen LaMelo just has so much upside. He can put up a massive game, can put up a triple-double any night. He would still be viable even in a tougher spot. I think he still is a pretty solid pay-up option. The rest of the Hornets, like Bridges, Rozier, Hayward, I think are all fine plays. None of them stand out at their price points. We do have Mason Plumlee out again, which does benefit Kelly Oubre and PJ Washington. We have seen Kelly Oubre get big minutes off the bench in back-to-back games. Only played 27 minutes in that game against Minnesota, but that was a blowout. He would have played more had the game stayed close. And then last game against Houston in overtime, he played 36 minutes. He's been really productive these last few games. Even though Mason Plumlee and Kelly Oubre don't play the same position, you see the Hornets are running different lineups when Plumlee's off the floor. They'll play Miles Bridges at center. They're obviously going to start PJ Washington at center. But when they play like these small ball lineups, it allows for Kelly Oubre to get more minutes, and we've seen that these last few games. Now, his price is up to $5,300. I don't think he stands out as like a core play or anything, but definitely viable with Plumlee out. And I think PJ Washington's a pretty good play once again, $5,100. On DK, I like him quite a bit. And on Yahoo, I think he looks like a pretty solid play over there as well, coming in at $16. So back-to-back games, we see PJ Washington start in place of Plumlee, has played 24 and then 35 minutes, in the overtime game, 27 and 36 DK points. So PJ Washington, normally when he gets minutes, he can be relatively productive. He's close to a fantasy point per minute player, and I think he does play around 26 to 30 minutes if this game stays close and as long as he's not in foul trouble. The Bulls, like I said earlier, they're a good defensive team, but you can definitely beat them down low. Vooch has really never been that great of a defender. So I think 5,100 for PJ Washington. He's a pretty solid play, just kind of at first look. We're going to have to wait and see what other plays open up as the day goes on, but I definitely like PJ Washington here. With Mason Plumlee out again, I'm assuming he'll start, probably play close to 30 minutes, which definitely makes him a viable option at 5,100. But I think that's it for Charlotte. We can move on to the Chicago side. So it's a great spot here for these Bulls guys. Obviously, the Hornets, like I said earlier, have been playing really fast this season. In terms of defensive rating, they really haven't been that great defensively either. They're bottom 10 in defensive rating. So it wouldn't be surprising to see LaVine or DeRozan or Vooch do really well. But where they're all priced at, none of them stand out as priority plays for me. It's just hard to predict who's going to have the big game on a nightly basis when all these guys are healthy. We've seen the floor on these guys is fairly low. 8,800 for LaVine, he can definitely disappoint at this price point. He's still got a big ceiling, and it wouldn't be surprising if he puts up a ceiling game in a good matchup like this. But I don't think I'm going to pay 8,800 for LaVine. I don't think I'm going to pay 8,700 for DeRozan. Vooch has been limited to around 30 minutes since he came back from COVID. I think that's why he was out. He's yet to play more than 30 minutes since coming back, so tough to really go there at 8,300, even in a really good matchup. Lonzo, if you want to buy into the narrative of him going up against his brother, sure. It's 7K. I think he's playable, but I don't love anything from Chicago, just to be honest with you. So I think we can move on to the next game, OKC and Houston. So on OKC, now that this team is fully healthy, they have SGA back. I really don't like a ton of Thunder on this slate. When they're fully healthy, they're just not a team that I really roster that much. I think SGA himself is okay at 8K. This is a game that I think does stay close, so we should see SGA play his full 35, 36 minutes. He feels priced about right, but we know the upside is there for SGA when the games do stay close. They did just play this Houston team about a week ago, and SGA had 46 DK points in 37 minutes. I think he's probably my favorite play from the Thunder if I had to play anyone here. Don't love really anyone else, though. Like Lou Dort, I don't really ever play. I know he's been better lately. He's been producing at a pretty decent rate. As of late, he's been playing big minutes, but he's just not a guy that I really ever play. I just don't really like Lou Dort that much. Baisley, Giddey, where these guys are priced at, none of them stand out. So if for the Thunder, it's SGA for me, and that's probably it. Now on the Houston side, I kind of like some of these Rockets. I was pretty high on these Rockets on Saturday. They had massive games. Christian Wood, Kevin Porter both went off against Charlotte in that overtime game. I think it's totally fine to go right back to these guys. Really good matchup here against OKC. OKC, not a good defensive team at all. Again, this is a game, you have two bad teams going up against each other. This is a game that expects to stay close. You expect these guys to play their full minutes. And we've seen Christian Wood, I think these teams have played twice this year, and he crushed, not last time, but the time before when they played OKC. He went for 60 DK points. OKC, they're a really bad defensive team against bigs. They don't really have any good defensive big men. This is definitely a spot where Christian Wood could go off again like he did on Saturday against the Hornets. So I definitely like Christian Wood. And even with Kevin Porter Jr.'s price coming up, I think he's a strong play as well. Without Jalen Green, with him out right now, I think that does secure Kevin Porter for big minutes. I think no Jalen Green is going to allow for Kevin Porter to have the ball in his hands a lot. We saw him get 12 assists last game. He nearly had a triple-double in that game against Charlotte. Again, the price tags come up to $6,800, but I still think he's a really good play. I think he plays big minutes if it's a close game. And then some of these other guys I think are viable, like Eric Gordon should start once again. He started last game in place of Jalen Green, played 37 minutes. He probably plays around 30 to 32 minutes here. He feels priced about right at $5,200, but definitely playable. Same with Jayshawn Tate. And then Garrison Matthews, I do want to mention just because he moved into the starting lineup last game, played big minutes. Not a guy that I really enjoy playing. He's a very scoring-dependent player. He doesn't really do anything except shoot. He's not going to get rebounds. He's not going to get assists. So he's one of these guys that I don't really want to play if he's popular, especially with his price coming up to 4K. If people are going to play Garrison Matthews today, I will gladly fade him. If nobody's going to play him, if he's going to be really low owned, then I think he's a guy you could definitely look to in tournaments. I think his floor is really low. There is somewhat of a ceiling for him if he gets hot and starts knocking down shots. But even last game, he shot 60% from the field, 55% from three, and he still only scored 28 DK points. Garrison Matthews just feels like one of these guys that is really unlikely to, he's really unlikely to be a guy that you have to have at the end of the night. I'll say that. I think he's a solid value, but just know that the ceiling on him is pretty limited, and the floor is definitely, really low if he's not hitting his shots. But I think that's it for this game. We can move on to the next one, Indiana and Minnesota. So looking at the Pacers here, this is a team that I do have a good amount of interest in, specifically the top two guys, Sabonis and Brogdon. I think in a good matchup against Minnesota. Minnesota so far this year, they've been playing at a close to a top 10 pace. They're 11th in pace so far this season. They're really not that good of a defensive team. I think it is a pretty good spot for Brogdon and Sabonis. Sabonis specifically at 8,400, I like a lot on this slate. I think it looks like a really strong play on DK, and I like him quite a bit on Yahoo as well. $37 at power forward. I think he stands out as one of the better power forward options in general. We saw Sabonis Sunday. This is a back-to-back for the Pacers, but these guys really didn't even play their full minutes. It was a blowout against Milwaukee, and Sabonis only played 22 minutes. He really wasn't that productive, but we've seen lately the production has kind of come back from Sabonis. He started off this season really slow. He wasn't producing at that elite level that we saw him produce at last year. But we're starting to get that from Sabonis lately. I mean, he's put up at least 40 DraftKings points in 4 of his last 5 games. He's going to play big minutes if the game does stay close. We know Sabonis does stuff the stat sheet when he's on the court. He's very likely to get you a double-double. He can get some assists as well. 8,400 is too cheap for Sabonis if we expect him to play 34, 36 minutes in what is a good matchup against Minnesota. So I really like Sabonis. I think Brogdon's a pretty good play too at his price tag. And then Miles Turner, LeVert, Duarte, I think are playable. Miles Turner, he randomly every once in a while he'll just come out of nowhere and put up 50 DraftKings points. He has a big ceiling, but there's still a pretty low floor for Miles Turner. But he blocks a lot of shots. The matchup against Cat I think is pretty good for Turner as long as he can stay out of foul trouble, but nowhere near a priority for me. Same could be said for Caris LeVert at 5,300. This price tag on LeVert seems somewhat low, but he really just hasn't been producing at a high rate this year, especially when he's playing alongside Sabonis and Brogdon and Miles Turner. He's just not nearly as productive of a player playing alongside those guys. So honestly, 5,300 feels probably like an appropriate price for LeVert. I think the top two guys, Sabonis, Brogdon, are the ones that really stand out here. Now on the Minnesota side, I don't love too much for Minnesota. Cat, Ant, D. Russ, I think are all viable tournament options. I think on this slate where they're all priced at, none of them are going to stand out as priority plays. Obviously, Ant on Friday was just a huge disappointment. It was a great spot for him against Charlotte. He was massive chalk on Friday, played only 28 minutes. It was a massive blowout. He only scored 21 DK points. And then, of course, the day after that, I think that was a day game or something. It was like a showdown slate. Ant plays 48 freaking minutes in overtime, has 43 DK points. It seems like whenever guys bust, whenever they're chalk and they bust, they always just go off the next slate and nobody ever plays them. Since Ant did well last game, he'll probably do shitty today. I don't really know, but 7,900, I think his price for this matchup is probably where it should be. Same could be said for Cat. Same could be said for D'Angelo Russell. Malik Beasley, I did kind of like for value on Friday with Patrick Beverley out. I think he's an okay value. I don't think he stands out on this slate, but at 4,400, he should probably play around 25, 30 minutes off the bench. He's somewhat of a scoring dependent player, but if he's knocking down shots, we've seen that he has a pretty high ceiling. Scored nearly 40 DK points that game against Miami. So I don't mind Beasley as a value play with Patrick Beverley out, but that's it for Minnesota. We can move on to the next game, Cleveland and Dallas. So in Cleveland today, Darius Garland, 7,700. Feels priced about right, but the upside is definitely there for Garland to where I think he is still playable at this price tag. Spending nearly 8K for Garland isn't something I thought I'd ever be doing, but he's been really, really good this year. He's been playing a ton of minutes. As long as this game is close, I think we get probably close to 40 minutes from Darius Garland. He has shown 45, 50-point upside. I think he's definitely in play on this slate at 7,700. I think Jared Allen, even with Evan Mobley back last game, still did really, really well, played huge minutes. 36 minutes for Jared Allen, 42 DK points. We have seen the Cavs this year. The Cavs have just been running a super tight rotation. They're giving big minutes to Garland, to Rubio. Well, not necessarily Rubio, but Garland, Allen, Mobley. All these guys are playing 35, 36 minutes a night. Even in his first game back from injury last game, Evan Mobley played 33 minutes. So all these guys have upside just because they're going to play so many freaking minutes. And then even Lauri Markkanen, he'll probably get low 30s minutes. Could maybe play more depending on what happens with Dean Wade and Jetty Osman. I think Dean Wade is doubtful. Yeah, so he's doubtful, not expected to play, but Jetty Osman's questionable. If Jetty Osman were to sit, I think that probably would mean Lauri Markkanen would be forced to play 35, 36 minutes, so he would become a little bit of a better option. That's probably it, though, for Cleveland. I think definitely the top three guys, Garland, Allen, and Mobley, look the best, with probably Garland and Allen being my two favorites. And then if Jetty Osman gets ruled out, I think that will give a little bit of a minutes boost to Lauri Markkanen, and at 5,600, he would become a viable option too. But on the other side with Dallas, I think Dallas is pretty straightforward for me here. It's probably just Luka, and that's it. I think on this slate, 9 games, we haven't talked about a ton of studs. We've obviously talked about Jokic, who may or may not play. We've talked about Embiid. You got like LaMelo, but it's not a great spot for him. You got Towns, who feels priced about right. Luka, though, even at 11,300, even though that price tag also feels about right, Luka, we just know, has a massive ceiling. We know he has a massive floor as well. He looks like one of the better pay-up options today. I like him a lot on DK, and I think he looks really good on Yahoo. Only $49 over there. He is definitely underpriced on Yahoo today. We know what Luka's going to do. I don't need to tell you guys that Luka is a productive player. I think you already know that. He's going to play huge minutes as long as the game stays close. He's put up at least 50 DraftKings points in, 5 straight games now of at least 54 DK points for Luka. Again, massive minutes in close games. He started off the season kind of slow, but Luka's one of these guys that has really started to kind of find his stride. We were seeing that, high floor, 50 plus DK points in 7 of his last 10 games. He's put up at least 50 DK points. We know he's got a big ceiling. We know he can put up a massive triple-double any game. Cleveland's not a team I'd be too worried about defensively. I don't think they really have any great defenders that are going to stop Luka here. So Luka, really, really like him. I think Porzingis at his price tag is okay. I don't love him on this slate, though. And then the rest of the Mavs, I'm pretty much off of. I don't really like anyone else here. I think Luka is definitely the standout play from Dallas today. But next game, we'll go ahead and talk about Washington and San Antonio. So the Wizards are kind of another team on this slate where everyone on the Wizards just feels priced where they should be. Beal, Kuzma, Dinwiddie, none of them stand out at their price tags. Daniel Gafford's been playing really well lately. His minutes have started to trend up a little bit, and we see Montrezl Harrell's minutes kind of trend down. Last 2 games, Daniel Gafford's played 27 minutes in both games. I have no idea if that continues, but if he continues to get 26, 27 minutes a night, it would not be surprising to see him continue to put up big games. Again, I think the minutes for Harrell and Gafford are going to fluctuate. I think most nights you're going to see a pretty even split in terms of minutes, but maybe some nights where Gafford's playing really well, they'll give him more minutes. That's kind of been the case these last 2 games. If you want to take a shot on him, I think it's fine. He's still a riskier option just because he is going to be splitting minutes with Harrell, but Gafford has shown that when he does get minutes, he can be productive. If I had to play anyone from Washington today, it probably would be Gafford, to be honest with you. Now, on the San Antonio side, Dejounte Murray, 9,600. Tougher spot here against Washington. Washington this year have been playing at a much slower pace than they did last season. They've been way better defensively. But Dejounte Murray has just been so freaking good. You look at his game log, at least 50 DraftKings points in 5 of his last 6 games with at least 50 DK points for Dejounte Murray. Gives you triple-double upside. 9,600, that price tag feels high, but he's been justifying that price tag because he's shown massive upside. I still think he's a really good pay-up option. I definitely like Dejounte Murray on this slate. I think the rest of the Spurs, outside of Jakob Poeltl, who we're going to talk about, like Derek White, Keldon Johnson, Lonnie Walker, I had some interest in last slate with Vassell and McDermott both out. He barely played any minutes. He played 15 minutes. So even if Vassell and McDermott are out again, I doubt I would go to Lonnie Walker. But yeah, Derek White and Keldon Johnson, they both feel priced where they probably should be. Jakob Poeltl, though, I think is still way too cheap. 5,700 on DK. I like him a lot. I think he's still a little bit too cheap on Yahoo as well at $22. I've been saying it these last few slates, Jakob Poeltl is not a $5,700 player. When he's playing 34, 36 minutes a night, he should be priced around $7K. He's a really productive player when he's on the floor. He scores, he gets rebounds, he blocks shots. He probably will get you a double-double if he plays his normal minutes. The Wizards are a team you can definitely beat down low. They've been good defensively as a team, but against big men, that's where they really struggle. We've seen a lot of guys have big games. A lot of centers have big games against the Wizards this year. I think Jakob Poeltl has a ton of upside here. I think he plays a lot of minutes if it's a close game. 5,700, way too cheap for Jakob Poeltl. Love him on the slate. Really like Dejounte Murray as well. And I think that's probably it from San Antonio. Now, Portland and Utah. Looking at the Blazers here, tougher spot on the road against the Jazz. I don't think you're going to see a ton of ownership outside of maybe a guy like Nasir Little, who we're going to talk about. I don't think you're going to see many guys on this Portland team be owned today. So you're definitely going to get Dame, CJ, maybe Nurkic. All these guys I think will come in at pretty low ownership. So they're viable tournament plays. Dame, we know, has a ton of upside. He had a really bad game against Golden State last game. I'd expect Dame to bounce back here. He seems to get up for these big-time games, and obviously this is a big-time game going up against a really good opponent in the Jazz. So I think Dame plays well. I'm fine with him in tournaments. I probably would prefer guys like Luka, LaMelo, Deontay, though. But I still think Dame's okay. I think CJ's okay at his price tag. I do want to mention Yusuf Nurkic because I think this is a matchup where Yusuf Nurkic will probably have to play more minutes. We saw Yusuf Nurkic play 32 minutes against the Kings a couple days ago, and he had a massive game, 59 DK points. His minutes have not been very high this year. You look at his game log. I mean, out of his last 10 games, he's only played 30 minutes once out of his last 10 games. But going up against Rudy Gobert, going up against Hassan Whiteside, normally one of those two guys are on the floor at all times. So I think this is a spot where Yusuf Nurkic probably has to play like 30, 32 minutes. I don't think they really can go small and put Robert Covington against Rudy Gobert or Larry Nance against Rudy Gobert. I just don't think that's going to work. I think we will see Nurkic play around 30 minutes today. A 6,300, even though the matchup against Gobert is not great, Nurkic is just such a productive player when he's on the floor that I don't care who he's going up against. I just want him to get the minutes, and I think this is a spot where he probably does play more minutes. So I definitely like Yusuf Nurkic. And then I think we do get some value from Portland with Norman Powell out today. We will probably see Nasir Little move into the starting lineup, and for 3,500, definitely like him as a cheap punt play. He's minimum salary on Yahoo, so I think he looks really good over there as well. $10 at the small forward position. We've seen Nasir Little start in place of Powell before this year. I think every game that Powell's been out this season, Little has been the guy that has started in place of him. I will say that Little, in the past has never really been a guy that I've really wanted to roster. He's not really shown much upside in the past. But I will say this year he has been a way more productive player. His point per minute average has been way better this year. We've seen games where he gets 26, 28 minutes. I mean, he can score 25, 23 DK points. He had 31 DK points against Denver in 29 minutes. Against Houston earlier this year, 28 minutes, 41 DK points. I don't think Nasir Little's a guy that's going to go out there and just break the slate. I don't think he's a guy that you have to have, but looking at value below 4K, I think he does stand out as one of the better cheap plays with Norman Powell out, assuming that he starts. He probably plays around 30 minutes, even in a tougher matchup against the Jazz. I do like Nasir Little as a value play today. But I think that's probably it for Portland. Now moving on to the Utah side, I really don't like anything from Utah here. They're not a team I really roster that much to begin with. Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, I will say the matchup against Portland's pretty favorable. Portland's not a good defensive team, so it wouldn't be surprising to see one of those guys have a good game, but where they're priced at, they don't really stand out. Royce O'Neal was out last game. This will be something to monitor. So with Royce O'Neal out last game, you did actually see Joe Ingles move into the starting lineup. Joe Ingles would definitely be my favorite play from Utah if Royce is out again, because I assume Ingles would start. He would probably play around 30 minutes, if not more. He played 27 minutes last game against the Pelicans, but that was a huge blowout. He probably would have played way more had the game stayed close. So Joe Ingles at 4,100. If Royce O'Neal is out, I do like a lot for value. And then I think, probably not on the main slate, but if you're playing the late night slate, a guy like Rudy Gay will probably get some more minutes if Royce O'Neal is out. He's been really productive this year with San Antonio, with Utah. So I think Rudy Gay at 4K, if Royce is out again, would be a viable cheap play. Probably more of a late slate play than a main slate play, but someone you could consider if you want to go there. I think that's it, though, for this game. We can move on to the last game of the night, the late night hammer, the Pelicans and the Clippers. So looking at the Pelicans today, there are some guys I do have interest in here. J-Val at 8,400. His minutes have kind of been trending down lately, but I really don't want to look too much into that because a lot of these games have been blowouts. The Washington game was a blowout. The Utah game, last game, was a blowout. I think this game, the other game when they played Utah, he was in foul trouble. The Minnesota game, he had 5 fouls in 19 minutes. This game against Indiana, I think, was a blowout. So, yeah, J-Val's minutes, I don't want to look too much into his last 5 games because they've just been blowouts or foul trouble. I think when games are close and J-Val is not in foul trouble, he is going to play 34, 35 minutes. And we know Valanciunas has massive upside. We know he has a 50, 60-point ceiling. The Clippers have never really been a team that's been great defensively against big men like Zubac, Ibaka. Those guys really aren't great defensively. J-Val, earlier this year against the Clippers, for what it's worth, 50 DK points in 38 minutes. So he's probably my favorite play from the Pelicans. I think Brandon Ingram at 7,500 is definitely in play as well. He should also get big minutes here if this game stays close. His floor this year has been pretty low. We've definitely seen a lot of bad games from Brandon Ingram, but we know he still has a pretty high ceiling. We know he's going to get a lot of usage in this Pelicans offense. So I think he's okay. I think Josh Hart probably plays big minutes if it's a close game at 5,300. He'd be a fine option too. That's probably it though from the Pelicans. I think J-Val is the standout play here, and then Ingram and Hart are both viable too. Now looking at the Clippers real quick before we do end the video. So Paul George, 10,200. Definitely a viable pay-up option on this slate. We know Paul George at this point, what he's going to do on a nightly basis. He's going to play big minutes. He's going to dominate the usage. I think the matchup is pretty solid. I mean, the Pelicans this year in terms of pace, They haven't really been that fast of a team. They're 18th in pace in terms of defensive rating. The Pelicans are, they're 26th in defensive rating, so they are a pretty bad defensive team in general. I think if this game does stay close, I think Paul George does have a lot of upside. Now, is he like my favorite stud on the slate? Probably not. I think I'd rather play Luka, Deontay, maybe LaMelo. But Paul George, we know, has a lot of upside and is definitely someone you could consider paying up for today. The rest of the Clippers, I don't have a ton of interest in, though. They're just more like secondary plays. Reggie Jackson, Zubac, Bledsoe, they all feel priced where they probably should be. It's a revenge game for Eric Bledsoe. If you want to look at that, I don't think that really even matters. But 5,200, he's a fine play. Marcus Morris, he's come back from injury, and every game that he's played in, he has started, and he's played 31, 23, and 34 minutes. He did get up to 34 minutes Sunday against the Warriors. Keep an eye on the injury report. It is a back-to-back, so there wouldn't be surprising if Marcus Morris winds up resting here because it is a back-to-back. But if he does play and he starts, he remains in the starting lineup, I think he probably gets 32, 34 minutes for 4,600. Outside of Paul George, Marcus Morris might be my next favorite play from the Clippers here, if I was looking for a cheaper option, but not too much stands out from the Clippers, just to be honest with you. So I think that's it, guys. I think that's it for all of these 9 games for Monday night. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope it helped. If you enjoyed, click that like button down below. Click that subscribe button as well. And again, if you have not yet, check out the sponsor of the video, PrizePicks. You can check out the PrizePicks board. Look at all the stuff they have available for Monday night's NBA games. They'll have point projection, rebounds, assists, 3-pointers made. They'll also get fantasy point projections posted probably early Monday morning. And you just go over or under. You make at least 2 picks, but you can make up to 5 picks. Win up to 10 extra money on PrizePicks. If you want to sign up, use code Noah. They'll match your first deposit. They will give you a free bet up to $100. But yeah, guys, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Best of luck on the slate. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.